Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are going to get into creating a family culture teens want to be a part of. And before we do that, I have this week's parenting moment that's going to look a little bit different this week. So it's more of a scenario that I've got going on that I wanted to get Jeremiah and Selina's thoughts on. And it ties in perfectly with this theme of today's episode. So our 9-year-old, I've said this before, this girl has an elite social life. Like, she loves to go out and play with friends, and she spends a lot of time doing it. Like, she spends her summers kind of just roaming the neighborhood. And we've kind of fallen into this rut with her a little bit where I'm concerned that she's not getting enough individual attention from Curtis and I. And so she's demanding it in other ways by acting out, fighting with her brother, these kinds of issues. And so these are struggles we're having really regularly. And so we're kind of wondering, like, what's the balance here? Do we just say, no, you can't go play with your friends today because we have to do something as a family? Or do we just maybe try to implement more family time? And there's some other family dynamics going on too that I think further complicate it, meaning, our other 3 kids currently kind of have a little bit higher needs and her needs are a little bit lower. So there's some of that dynamic going on too, which is just kind of natural ebb and flow. But I thought it would be a good way to start this and just get your guys' thoughts on this situation in the Lang household.
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind for me would be that's a great family meeting topic.
Okay.
And saying, we see that this is a need that we have. What is your suggestion? And yeah, if you bring up the idea of every Wednesday night is family time, we don't do outside friends or whatever and things like that. That's when we spend time together as a family. If that's what you guys come up with as a family and what you feel like will fill that need. Definitely, if you see some behaviors happening, it's what's called a mistaken goal. And so she has a need that she is expressing and it's coming out in other ways that you probably would prefer her not to. And so we can always look at that and see what the behavior is, and then you can see what the need is and what she's actually really trying to accomplish by that behavior. Again, talking to her, seeing if there's time you can set up for even just one-on-one time and scheduling that time or having it a consistent. But I think being open to her and talking and to the whole family of what will work to help fulfill that need.
I agree with Selina. I think that, we can look at mistaken goals here and understand what's happening. And I think, Liz, that you're probably pretty on track with maybe some of the other things going on in the household. And some of that's a little bit stressful, I know. So all of your children are going to feel that stress that you're experiencing and the tension that could be there in some of those more challenging situations that are going on. And so all of those things can have an impact. But, something I've been thinking about is so much of our parenting is really based around like procedures, right? We got to get this done. We got to get that done. This kid's got to go to school. This kid's got to go to soccer. This kid's got to go to gymnastics or whatever it is, right? And then we have these rules, and our job as parents is to enforce the rules and to make sure that things are running smoothly at home. And we've got chores that we got to manage. And so there's a lot of administrative type work happening in our homes. And this is what we're going to get into in today's topic. But if our homes just feel administrative to children, then they're not going to want to be there. And then we're going to see more conflict. And so when we're looking at your daughter, I love the idea of one-on-one time with a child regularly, especially those who are low conflict and maybe getting ignored because the higher conflict or the higher need, not all needs are high conflict, but right. I'm just saying that there's high needs, sometimes that are going on, and it becomes a little bit worrisome that you have one child that maybe isn't getting any attention because they're just kind of quiet and they're happy and life is good and they don't require a lot from us. But being more intentional and making the place, a home where people want to be and have conversations. And it's not always, did you get your homework done? Did you do your chore? Did you do this? How come this isn't finished yet? But more of a casual conversation about life and about what's happening, and quiet time with the child and doing things that they enjoy. And I love that you mentioned, scheduling family time or whatever. And I know Selena mentioned that as well. But I would suggest that this happens in a family meeting where everyone has input. Because if you and dad just say, hey, from now on, every Wednesday afternoon from 4 to 8 is family time, and we're going to be doing that, that might not go over as well as you think it would.
Right.
While it sounds great on the surface, everyone should be included. And so we can have a family meeting and we can discuss, here's the problem we're having, and what do you guys suggest for solutions? And of course, you and dad should have your suggestions, which might include setting aside family time to do activities. And those activities don't have to be costly. They could be free, going for a walk, in a park, or playing at a park, or going out for ice cream or games, card games, whatever your family likes, right? It's not so important what it is, but that it is, and what the emotional environment surrounding that activity looks like.
Yeah, thanks for those suggestions. I think that is a great idea. And I also love the idea of addressing it in a family meeting, because I think if you put words to the issue, if you vocalize the issue, it will help that kid. And it will help my daughter. I'm kind of generalizing here, but it helps the child to feel seen, like, oh, I do matter. I am important, which fits in really well with what we want to talk about today, in that building belonging beyond rules and routine. So like you mentioned, Jeremiah, so much administrative work goes into running a house. And I love that phrase, because there is a lot that needs to get done. We have to get laundry done. We have to eat. We've got to make sure the dishes are done, right? So like there's a lot that goes into functioning as a family. And oftentimes, teens, they don't want to do it. And I think what's really big here is teens run into the same issue that we do with my daughter, my 9-year-old, is that you're competing with their friends. And it feels like more often than not, friends just win because friends become so important to teens. And, they build a huge sense of belonging and identity around their friend group. So what are your guys' thoughts? And it's perfectly okay. I think that's also important to say. It's good for teens to have a social life and to create friends, to create those relationships, those connections. Those are important to teens. But what are your guys' thoughts on how do we still keep that teen wanting to also have that sense of belonging within the home? Because they still need that. That is just as important, if not a little bit more important, or probably a lot more important than that friend group.
Yeah, that's an important question to answer, and it's not a simple answer. If it were, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. It's complex, and there's a lot of variables. I could give you an example of some old friends we had many years ago, and they struggled with none of their kids' friends. They wouldn't come hang out at their house at all, and they wondered why. And I remember this was long before I even got into this type of work, but I remember thinking, well, you just told me why, because what they shared was that at a certain time, which was right after dinner, the kitchen is closed and the children aren't allowed in the kitchen after a certain time. And they're only allowed in the kitchen during certain periods of the day. Well, you had a house full of teenage boys. Closing the kitchen doesn't work, right? And when you close the kitchen, it doesn't feel like a home to them. It feels like a place where they go. And think about school, right? Like everything is dictated what you do and where you go and how you get there. And I don't want to be treated that. I don't want to be told I can't go in the kitchen if I'm feeling hungry or something of that nature. Maybe I want a snack. It really comes down to, I think, building an environment and relationships with our children that feel welcoming. If your child thinks they're just going to get lectured every time they walk in the door, they're going to dread coming home. Why do they want to be at home? If they feel like they're going to get punished because they made a mistake, like why do they want to be at home? Why do they want to be a part of that? And so I was thinking about this the other night. We were at an awards thing for our oldest at-home daughter that's graduating high school. And this teacher was talking about the connections and things that they had made with the other students, and talked a lot about creating a space where kids felt welcome and comfortable. This teacher's office door was always open. They could just walk in and have a conversation with the teacher. And you could see with many of the kids that there was a connection there, and that they wanted to be there. They felt comfortable there. They felt safe there. That's the kind of thing we have to work on creating as parents. And it's not easy. There's a lot of moving pieces, and we're going to get into some of those.
Yeah.
I think why the answer is not easy is because our kids are all different. So how do you help them to feel valued and included and safe and seen? So that looks different. I think of each one of my kids and how that looks different. Because some want to be praised and want to be able to have their friends hang out and have their friends just come over and not have to ask and that kind of thing. But then I have another kid that how they would feel safe and included and valued is me taking interest in the things that they're learning, and for them to be able to talk about it and have me spend the time to listen to them. I think maybe the key is that you have to know and understand your kid and how they are, not what you expect them or what you think they should be doing, but what is important to them that helps them to feel valued and included. And that's where you're going to go off of to be able to create that space for them when they're home.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. So we can easily fall into this rut where a lot of our interactions involve either correction or praise. So, your kid did something good and you're celebrating. You're like, oh, wow, that's really great work. Or, hey, we need to fix this problem going on. Whereas, think of just little day-to-day things that you can do to help your kiddo feel seen. Like, first thing in the morning, hey, good morning, I'm so happy to see you, and give them a hug, right? No reason. Or, like, tell me what happened at school today. Or I know you had a field trip. Tell me about this field trip. I want to hear what happened. And so trying to incorporate some of those like little interactions that don't revolve around either praise or correction.
Yeah, I think those are great ideas and definitely things that could be useful. And it really, what we're talking about here is really creating an environment where your children feel like this is their home and they're comfortable here. They're safe here. They're safe when they make a mistake. They're safe when they do well. They're safe when they're sad. They're safe when they have big emotions and things are hard, and they're safe to talk to you. When we create those kinds of things, we start to create a culture within our family that our kids want to be a part of. Now the reality is that and I love that Selina brought this up, every single kid is different. And that's going to look different in every family, every household, and in each of the individual relationships within each family. You may have a kid that's just never going to be super interested in hanging out with the family. And that doesn't mean that they're not happy to be there and aware of what's going on. It means that they see things maybe differently than you or I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think the point is creating a space where they do feel seen and heard and welcome, and they just want to be a part of it. And I know it's a little bit hard. We're talking in generalities. I think maybe it'd be a little more clear if we had, some direct examples here. But the point is that if all's we do, and I guess I'm beating this horse to death, but if all we do is lecture and enforce consequences and manage rules and behaviors, and like we're missing out on some of the greatest parts of parenting. Like I enjoy being a parent of teenagers. It is truly fun. It's exciting. And sometimes you never know what's going to come out of their mouths and what's happening. And that's okay. It's really a lot of fun. And it doesn't need to be miserable. There are hard times. Yes. We've shared some of our hard times on this podcast, but I absolutely love it. I love being around teens and feeling their energy and helping them to see their potential. It's just an exciting thing.
Yeah. So here's a good example. A teen is spending most of their time isolated in their room, which is a different type of problem because, here you're not necessarily competing with friends, right? But, and maybe they're doing something productive that they enjoy. Maybe they're reading a book or they're drawing, right? Or they're just listening to music, which all those activities are perfectly fine and good. And teens should have, some downtime and time to themselves. But when they're isolating too much, they're not spending time with the family. That's a problem. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing I'm going to ask is there a shift in behavior patterns, right?
Hmm.
If they were spending a lot of time with family and suddenly now they're isolating, we're going to want to try and investigate and understand what's happening there and why. But I think the real question is what kind of emotional experience does our home create? Is it stressful? Is it a lot of yelling and arguing? Is it warmth and kindness? Is it openness? Is it a mixture of all those things? And maybe that's the better question to ask, right? And if we're creating an environment that isn't pleasant to be around, guess what? Our teens are going to go somewhere else. They're more comfortable, somewhere else they feel safe, somewhere they can feel like they can download or relax. There could be a billion different reasons why a teen is spending time isolated in their room, but possibly a simple invitation here. Hey, why don't you come with me to do such and such? Or, can I join you in your room? Tell me what music you're listening to. What kind of music do you like? Well, this is, we can talk about the music we liked and whatever it is. There's a lot of opportunities for connection there and opportunities to understand what's happening. And then that's the hard part for us as parents is to make shifts. If we look at this and go, yeah, no wonder that I wouldn't want to be here if I was being treated the way they're being treated, then that's an opportunity for us to look inward and say, okay, let's do some hard work and make some shifts here so they feel like they want to be a part of the family.
I think that goes back to what has already been said with having those interactions not just be about your chores and your grades and what they need to get done and those kind of things. So providing more opportunities of the little interactions being about other things going on, things in their life, things that they're interested in. And that's where you're going to have the connection and have the environment that you're trying to have in your home, rather than just always the interactions be about behaviors and grades and things that they need to get done.
It takes the pressure off. So you want to create, low pressure situations wherever you can. I mean, because again, like we said, there's just a lot of administrative work that goes into it. And creating low pressure does not mean no boundaries, right? So I loved your example of, the kitchen being closed, right? So making your kitchen always open doesn't mean there's no boundaries. It doesn't mean they can just go eat an entire box of Oreos in one sitting.
I want to interject right there.
Okay.
So what if they did go eat a whole box of Oreos? We're talking about honestly, I think that this is probably part of the struggle, right?
Okay.
Is that we try so hard to control everything and we're not creating an environment. Because guess what? If your 13-year-old son goes and eats an entire box of Oreos, how is he going to feel?
Yeah, he might.
So he's going to learn something. You've probably already taught him, hey, it's not a good idea to eat a whole box of Oreos in one setting. But sometimes it's better to learn. And so I wonder if sometimes we could just step back a little bit more and give kids a little bit more autonomy to make some choices and decisions, even when the outcome, we already know what it's going to be. Like, maybe my thoughts are that we work so dang hard to keep our kids from getting hurt or to feel uncomfortable or feel anything bad. You eat all that, you're going to be miserable if you eat all those Oreos. You're going to be so sick, and I don't want you to be sick, and I don't want to deal with it. But I've got to wonder, and I don't suggest that we encourage our kids to eat a whole box of Oreos. Please, nobody take that. But what I'm suggesting is sometimes just allowing some natural consequences is the best teacher our children could ever have. And then we're there for them like, ooh, not feeling so well, are you? I guess you probably learned something there. Yeah, what did you learn? Did you learn that, you shouldn't eat a whole box of Oreos in one setting or whatever it might be?
I was thinking as as you were saying that of, doing sympathy, because it can be so easy in those instances where you're just sitting there thinking, I told you so. And it's so hard not to say it. Well, see, this is why mom and dad are right. This is why mom and dad know best. That doesn't create the connection. What's going to create the connection in that instance is, what did you learn? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Asking that question.
Yeah, because guess what? How did mom and dad learn it?
Yeah.
Because we did the same dumb stuff, and we didn't have anybody to tell us no. And we didn't have parents maybe that worried the same way. And we've gotten into this world where there is this, we want to put this protective bubble around our children. And believe me, I get it, because I do it. I don't want them to get hurt. It's so painful when they're hurting. And I know the Oreos is a silly representation, but there are much more serious ones. And we don't want our kids to get hurt. We don't want them to experience pain, in all the different ways, whether it's in a friendship or a relationship or physical or whatever. And I'm not suggesting we just allow our kids to get hurt. Again, disclaimer there, don't let your kid go running in the street if they want to. Just, we want to make wise choices here. But my point is that allowing them to experience life and the natural consequences that come is not a bad thing. It's just really hard for us because we love our kids and we don't want to see them get hurt.
Yeah. If they stay up late in their room reading a book and didn't go to bed on time and then had to get up early the next morning, that's a pretty low risk situation for them to learn a really valuable lesson. And chances are most kids have probably done it already. And I'm sure younger kids certainly have, but they don't understand the connection of, I didn't get enough sleep last night and now I'm tired. They're usually just an ornery pill the next day. But, eventually teens will learn that. They will figure out the connection. And if we are constantly controlling every little thing, they're not going to make that connection for themselves if we're micromanaging everything.
You're right. They don't learn how to be independent and to think for themselves and to process, problem solve. We can't make all the decisions for them. It's a bad idea for us to do that.
Yeah. All right. So here are some real life family culture scenarios that can really help illustrate the point we're trying to make. So when a teen comes to you and says, do I have to come to dinner? Oftentimes the parents will respond, you never want to spend time with us. Come on, come do dinner with us. So what's a better way to respond to that? And why does that response deter from connection?
Anytime we respond in a negative way and make accusations, we're just pushing them away. We're not going to make them. Saying something like, you never want to spend time with us, is not going to make them want to spend time with you. I would argue, dinner times, this very well could be a part of family culture. I argue that we've lost a lot in family culture by not having regular family dinners together. I would argue that's the most important meal for relationships within the home. Now, I recognize that it's not always possible, especially with today's world and busy schedules and mom and dad work schedules and things like that. But we should be having dinner. That should be part of our culture anyway. And maybe I would argue that in my house, it's an expectation that you come to dinner, even as a teenager. And so I don't know for me if that's the greatest example, but I think that a response, and I know a lot of families don't have that capacity to have dinner every night. And so maybe a good response there would be something along the lines of helping them understand that you really value time with them. Man, I really enjoy hearing about your day. I would love if you could just spend 5 minutes with us and tell me a little bit about your day. That's an invitation rather than an accusation that we shared earlier. And that's more inviting and connecting than, you never spend time with us. And maybe they will, depending on, their attachment style and the way they respond. They may come to dinner just because they feel guilty, but there won't be any connection. It won't be worthwhile.
I think this is where curiosity comes into play again too, because you could ask them well, help me understand why you don't want to come eat dinner with us. Why do you not want to eat dinner with us? And that can help you, if they're open, to help you understand the environment you are creating in your home and help shift and change that to be an environment that they would want to come.
Which I think that curiosity piece could work for any of these scenarios. So if we go back to the teen always being in their room, it can be easy to point it out like you're isolating yourself. So give me a better way to respond to that, because, in that instance, like, it does need addressed, right? And so what's a better way to respond?
Yeah, I think the way I would look at it is, hey, I've noticed you spend a lot of time in your room. I'm curious if there's something else happening here that's pulling you away from the family or that's drawing you into your room. And it may be something as simple as, oh, I got this book and I love it and I just can't wait to read more. And they just, they spent a week in their room reading this big old giant book and they're just loving it. And it may be nothing, right? Or it could be something bigger. So that curiosity piece is super helpful there.
Well, if they could respond something with like, well, I just really like to have alone time. And you could say something like, oh, I respect and value that. That is important. I understand why you like that. We also really value having you with us, even if it's only for a little while. And so you're not lecturing or telling them all the reasons why they shouldn't isolate or
why they're wrong for being in their room.
Yeah, and you could understand where they're coming from and understand that, oh, they just need some alone time, or maybe like, I need to get away from my siblings. They're making me crazy. So you can appreciate that also too, and allow and give them that space that they need. But also I would check into your own thoughts, because if you're thinking this is wrong, this is bad, then that's what you're going to be filtering and thinking that's what's going on and something's wrong. Whereas it really could just be something like, oh, I just need some quiet time for me to be able to reset and recharge. Okay, valid. I think we all need that.
Yeah. And maybe even throwing out an invitation. Hey, do you want to come do something for a little bit? Come hang out with us for a bit, come watch a movie or play a game, whatever. Or, hey, we're going for a walk. Why don't you come join us? So how about this one? When a teen seems disconnected from family values, which is most likely going to happen as teens are figuring out autonomy, it's very normal for them to question their own beliefs, question mom and dad's beliefs, and maybe they're forming some opinions that mom and dad don't necessarily agree with. So it can feel frustrating, and you can often say, well, you don't care about our family, like you don't respect our values and you don't care about us. That's definitely not going to build connection. So what's a better way?
Another way to look at this is to understand what's important to the kid, to the child. And that's a great place to go with curiosity questions again, right? I'm really curious about what things are most important to you right now. Where are your values at right now? And you're probably going to get a lot about friends and maybe school or sports, depending on what they're involved in. Maybe it's, I have a daughter that would probably tell you horses are the number one most important thing in the whole world to her. And that's okay, right? They're figuring out their lives. And when we understand what's important to them and what they value, then we can work with that, right? Especially if they're pulling away from family values and they tell you, horses are the most important thing to me. Well, let's plan an activity this weekend where we can go to some place to see horses or take you on a horseback ride or something as a family to connect with the family. And it's really amazing what something simple like that could do. And I realize horseback riding isn't cheap. It's just the example that we have because we have a daughter that loves horseback riding. But those kinds of things can be really helpful. And what happens when we do that is now the child feels like they're a part of something, like they're important. What they value is important. And we're going to make that a part of our family because they value it.
Yeah, asking those questions and understanding what matters to them right now is helpful because, again, check your thoughts. Is this right or wrong? And am I just thinking they're doing something wrong? And so when we're expecting them to be a certain something, but there's a process and there's a path and there's learning and growing all along that way. Just like for us, I didn't become as amazing as I am just because that's who I am. I had to go through all these lessons and life lessons and failures and all those things to get to where I am. So we're expecting our kids to be at this certain point, or we want them to have this family value matter so much to them. But how did it become a value for us because of us learning and growing and making that important in our life because of what we've learned. So allowing them to grow and learn and figure that out is going to be the process, and that's what's going to help them to value our family values.
Yeah, and then also I think too, just recognizing your values might not always line up, and that's okay. I think it can go a long way to just be comfortable with disagreement and just be comfortable with this idea of we're not always going to agree on anything, and our values don't have to align for you to still be a valued member of the family. That's going to be really powerful for teens. And I think sometimes as parents, we can inadvertently make teens feel like they have to believe our values in order to belong to the family. And, that could be an entire episode in and of itself, but it is really important for kids to feel like they belong regardless of what mistakes they've made or if they think or act differently than the rest of us. It is still so important for them to understand that they are loved irregardless.
Definitely. We're going to have kids that are different and different than us. And especially if you have a large family like we have, you're going to see a lot of different value systems and ideas and ways of doing and being and thinking. And it's okay. All should be welcome. And we should celebrate differences within our family and help our kids to understand that differences are what makes the world go round. If we all believed and acted the same, we all had the exact same values and ideas and thoughts and desires, the world would be a very boring place without growth and without excitement. And so we should celebrate those differences, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so final thought to wrap up. The strongest family cultures are not built through pressure or perfection. They are built through connection, consistency, and a deep sense of belonging. So it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to get it right every time. And you are absolutely going to have family activities that you're going to plan and be so excited about. And your teen is just going to be a stink about it the whole time because they're going to be rolling their eyes. Why do I have to do this? I don't want to be here. And it's okay. Do it anyways. Don't let your teen's attitude spoil this fun event that you're excited for and that you've planned. You just got to roll with it, and maybe even acknowledge you don't want to be here. I get it, but this is what we're doing, so we're doing it anyways.
Yeah, I love that, Liz. Those family connections being built through what you said, consistency, a deep sense of belonging, connection. Those things are really important. And if your family is struggling with some of those things and you'd like some help, reach out to us and let's have a conversation and see how we can help. You can reach us at 208-557-1227. Or you can get a hold of us through our website, coreconnection.org.
And I have both of those listed in our show notes. So next week, we are going to talk about managing dopamine in kids, and we will see you all then. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.